Hello chess friends and welcome to Azadov Chess channel and welcome to really one of the greatest positional chess games that I've seen in my life. We have here the latest version of Stockfish, the powerful Stockfish 16, battling it out against another top engine Rebel in a beautiful Slav Indian defense. And this game I think you really like because in the beginning of this game we'll see normal plans, normal strategies, normal strategic concepts that I think are even understandable for beginners, because when you start to play chess, I think you should focus more on basic strategic concepts like backward pawns, weak squares, improving the position of minor pieces, positional trades of pieces, piece activity and similar stuff. So I think in the beginning of this game we'll see really this most important strategic concept, but then later of course it will be something else because Stockfish is a different beast. It will not be only a positional game, but in the beginning I think it was really sort of a boa constrictor Karpov play, but then later spectacular Garry Kasparov play, in my opinion. Really one of the best games that I've seen so far by Stockfish 16. So let's see now what happened with the white pieces. The fish opened with the move c4. We have knight to f6 by Rebel, d4, and now we have the move c6. So here black is delaying the move d5. Doesn't want to immediately commit himself with his move d5. He doesn't want to immediately show his cards that he's going maybe into structures of the Slav defense. Now if you play something, I don't know, knight to f3, then maybe later d6 e5 can be black's preparation, but I think still d5 would be then the continuation of black. So in my opinion this delaying idea can also be met with e6 d5. So basically with the move c6 black is keeping a certain flexibility in his opening stage. But now from move c6 Stockfish plays in sort of a London system way, says now with this move that you'll never be able to play here d6 e5. d6 e5 is in my opinion a long-term plan then for black, but then after knight to f3 we're controlling the e5 score, so it will be I think an unpleasant game for black to handle. So that's why here in the continuation Rebel continue now with the move d5, going now into normal structures of the Slav defense. We have e3, e6, now we have this semi-Slav triangle structure here by black, and now knight to c3. Now Rebel plays an interesting choice, bishop to d6. Doesn't want to tolerate really this annoying, unpleasant bishop on f4. Doesn't want to tolerate, I like to call it simply the London system bishop here. It's of course not the London system anymore, but sometimes you can get even this position out of the London system, so it's a little bit different mover, but I really like to call this a London system bishop. What should you do? For instance, if you play here bishop to d6 with the white pieces, then queen to d6 is coming into the game, and then black has, I think, good continuation because the queen is already out, so we get an extra tempo like here with the black pieces. Then black will castle and then play knight to d7, and maybe with the move e5 I think black should have a decent position. In my opinion black has equalized the game in an early stage of this opening, so that's why I think the better choice is here to play like Stockfish with bishop to g3. And it's also a very often and very popular move in the London system. Again, I will not say this is a London system, but it's similar. Now what should you do here in the continuation? Rebel continue with the move h6. We have knight to f3, we have bishop takes g3, and now h takes g3. Okay, let's stop now and evaluate the position. White has now this messed up pawn structure, the double pawn structure on the g file, which is of course a strategic disadvantage in long terms. But for this kind of disadvantage, I think white has a decent compensation when it comes to light square bishop's activity, because white's light square bishop is much better than black's light square bishop. So you see when the light square bishop of white comes on d3, then it controls both diagonals. On the other hand, black's light square bishop still needs improvement, maybe with moves like e5, but the e5 is so far controlled by white. So in my opinion really an unpleasant now bishop to have here on c8. So that's why here immediately knight from b to d7 played by the Rebel engine, preparing again maybe queen to e7 or queen to c7, and then hit the center with e5 or with the move c5. Both concepts I think are working here for black. So here Stockfish has again two choices. For instance, if you play here bishop to d3, then you probably get hit in this way, d takes c4, bishop to c4, and then black even can continue I think with a6 b5 and then c5, or even c5 immediately is an opportunity. Okay, maybe white is slightly better because of the better bishop on c4 than the bishop on c8, but black is already broken now the position in the center of the board. In my opinion, this would be an equal position. In my opinion, white didn't gain anything so far in the opening stage. Nothing wrong, of course, also for white, but I think we want to get more out of the opening when we play with the white pieces. So that's why here Stockfish played a very interesting choice, and instead of this move bishop to d3, plays now the move a4. Now after d takes c4, b5 to hit the bishop on on c4 is never an opportunity. So far Stockfish is controlling the b5 square. We have king side castling, a5. Stockfish expands now on the queen side, but now d takes c4. After bishop to c4, here Rebel played b5 immediately, but now after bishop to d3, here comes one of the first, I think, critical moments of this opening stage. So here there are basically two strategic concepts for black. You can play a6 and then, as we said, hit the center with the move c5, or you can play queen to e7 and then hit the center with the move e5. So c5 or e5, that's now your choice. You're trying to break and enter somehow in this position, and we have to say it, white's king is also now a little bit longer in the center, so when your opponent's king in the center, you should strike somehow in the center. So what should you do? For instance, if you play a6, this wasn't Rebel's continuation, then we have a beautiful move, and this maneuver I think you should really memorize if you're meeting Slav structures, semi-Slav structures. After move a6, here comes a beautiful bishop to e4 move, offering the trade of bishop for the knight, because if you play here knight to e4, then we have this one, knight to e4, and look at this. We have this backward pawn. That's what I really liked about the Stockfish play in the beginning. Of course, as I said, later it will be a Kasparov game. But so far, we're still in our Anatoly Karpov boa constrictor chess game here by Stockfish 16. After move knight to e4, look at this. c5 is now taken by this knight on e4. Rook to c1 is going to happen. If you play f5, okay, you maybe get the tempo, but I think we can even play knight to c5, d takes c5, trade off the queens, and still black is continuing the game with a bad bishop. Now it's even worse because you played f5 and you have blocked out again your light for bishop. Really wild stuff. So this is not working. After move bishop to e4, you could of course here play bishop to b7. You don't want to take out here the bishop on e4, but now with b4 you get simply locked here. Two pawns are controlling this backward pawn. Again, I guarantee you not have here a pleasant position from black's perspective. Let's flip the board and you can tell me about your feeling here of your light square bishop. You're simply paralyzed now. I think the bishop on b7 will stay here through the whole game. So this whole idea of a6 followed with c5 is not working. So that's why here after bishop to d3, Rebel tried a different idea. Plays now queen to e7, is trying now to hit the center with the move e5. Stockfish plays again this beautiful rook to c1. This move is again indirectly hitting the pawn on c6. For instance, if you play aggressively immediately with the move e5, and in the beginning it makes sense to play in this way because, as I said, white's king is simply stuck here in the center. Now we have a beautiful move, knight to e4, and this is the way to go. For instance, you play e takes d4. Now we have knight to f6. You play knight to f6, but now after knight to d4, again you have this weakness on c6. Maybe you can protect it for a while, but I'm not seeing good ways. Maybe, I don't know, bishop to b7, but still it's weak, so I'm not really seeing good ways how you're going to defend this. If you play c5, of course, if you advance the pawn, then the b5 is weak. So really powerful position play so far by Stockfish. So after move rook to c1, that's why Rebel tried bishop to b7 and then maybe hit the center with the move c5. Stockfish continues with knight to e4. We have rook from f to c8, and now a beautiful move here by Stockfish, knight to f6. This is a beautiful position move. What happens here? For instance, if you play queen to f6, this wouldn't be good. Then we have this strategic concept that we have talked about in the beginning, bad bishop strategy. We're trying to lock the bishop. Again, we would reach this position where the bishop is paralyzed, which is not good, of course, to have this bishop like this. If you play here, for instance, instead of the move queen to f6, if you play knight to f6 like a Rebel did here, then Stockfish plays now one of the most brilliant positional moves. Stockfish plays rook to c5, blocks out now the backward pawn on c6. Of course, Rebel plays now knight to d7, but you can guess what Stockfish is doing here. Stockfish is, of course, not reading. Stockfish still continues with the normal plan, plays now the beautiful, spectacular, monstrous exchange sacrifice with the move b4, and that's what I really liked about this game. We should not evaluate our activity, our pieces only by, I don't know, a rook is worth 5 points. We should always evaluate as an active pieces. Look at this. Now the bishop on b7 is still so paralyzed. Of course, here the poor engine rebel continued with knight to c5, but now look at this. After b takes c5, the bishop is still out, and suddenly Stockfish built a monstrous, a brutal attacking formation with the bishop aiming towards the king side, with the knight towards also aiming towards the king side. Rook stayed on the h file, so white never castled. Now suddenly white has an attack on the king side here. Bishop is blocked out. Both rooks are now on the edge of the board. It's almost like the rebel engine has to now defend the position only with the queen here on e7 against this monstrous setup of white's. Really brutal but beautiful, spectacular exchange sacrifice by Stockfish 16. We have queen to c7. We have king to f1 by Stockfish. Stockfish is saying here, I'll keep my rook on the h file. I don't want to castle. If I castle, of course, then I don't have any more attacking chances. Okay, maybe I get my knight on e5, which is hard then to kick away. Maybe I get the queen somehow into the game, but this is not enough. Then black maybe regroups, gets the rook back, maybe gets the queen back, maybe gets also the bishop somehow back into the game. So rook, staying with the rook now on the h file, I think was a brilliant idea. Stockfish even offers now the pawn on a5, and what should you do? For instance, if you play queen to a5, this wasn't played in the game, then you have this one, king to g1. You're trying maybe to get the queen back into the game, but now we launch a brutal attack with g4. Really wild stuff. You play something like f6, you don't want to allow maybe g5, then you play g5 anyway. Look at this. After f takes g5, knight to g5, h takes g5, bishop to g6. Look at this. Queen is coming in on h5. We have a rook and queen battery. Bishop controls, of course, the escape routes for the king. The game is over, I think, already here for black. Really wild stuff. So that's why from king to f1, rebel got a new defender into the game. Rook to f8. Stockfish continues with king to g1 anyway, and now f6. We have bishop to c2. Stockfish prepares now bishop and queen battery, is trying maybe in some lines to deliver an unpleasant check on h7. We have queen to a5, queen to d3, and now f5. Okay, you have maybe solved one problem, but now your bishop, as I said also in the middle of this video, is even worse now. It's even more paralyzed by own pawn structure. Now this bishop is just a big pawn here, simply paralyzed by its own pawn structure. So Stockfish continues, of course, with the beautiful g4. Tries now to open the long diagonal. We have rook from a to e8. Again, rebel is desperately trying to get new defenders into the game. Maybe play finally rook to bishop to c8, getting a new defender also. But Stockfish continues now with the move g5. What should you do? If you play here h takes g5, then we have again this one. We have this follow-up, g4, and again I think this is devastating. Knight to g5 is going to happen. King to g2, maybe in stone lines we can even play queen to f1, queen to h3. Really too many options here for white. I think black is getting tactically destroyed. So here after move g5, here rebel tried queen to a1, which makes of course sense because now the king is standing in the way of the rook. So far white doesn't have any more attacking chances on the h file, but it's of course just a temporarily defense for black. It's not a long-term defense that black played here, because Stockfish after move queen to a5 and g4 that Stockfish again played, again threatened bishop queen to h7, and after queen to d8 here rebel gets finally the queen back into the game. Stockfish plays a beautiful king to g3, and actually the king is perfectly fine here. Really wild stuff. There's nothing that can attack really the king here. Even if you try queen to c7, then of course knight to e5 is going to happen. We cover the diagonal, and not only that we cover the diagonal, actually the knight on e5 becomes the best piece on the board. Basically you're helping out white here with the move queen to c7 to improve his position, so you don't gain anything with a simple check on c7. So here rebel tried a desperate, I think, desperate continuation, because okay, you have two connected passers here on the A and B file, but it's so far away from a potential promotion. The attack that white is here on the king side is simply devastating. And now again here, what should you do? Maybe you can pause the video and choose between, I don't know, rook to h5, or should we play maybe here g takes h6? What would be your maybe continuation? Pause the video, maybe take your time, because it's really hard now to continue to have this attacking flow, to keep the pressure here. As I said, maybe just for fun try to find the best continuation, because it's so brilliant how Stockfish played this amazing chess game. Okay, for instance, many of us I think would play the move g takes h6, and it's not that this move is bad or something. Still, I think white should be better here. But actually, when you are on the attacking side, when you have this attacking flow, as I said, then you are not allowing your opponent's pieces to get back into the game. Now with rook to f6, okay, finally black has a new defender. With this move rook to h5, Stockfish controls still this rook on f6. Is not allowing here black's pieces to breathe. So it's not allowing him here, allowing them here to get back into the game. Really nice positional move. Rook to h5, bishop to c8. Again, a desperate move by Rebel, trying to finally somehow get his poor bishop into the game. Stockfish continues now with knight to e5. Hits now also the pawn on c6. Still controls the f6 square. Has still this bishop and queen battery. The rook is very active. We have a tension in front of black's king, so it's such a spectacular now and brutal attack by Stockfish 16. What should you do? For instance, if you try queen to c7 to protect the poor pawn on c6, then we have this one, queen to d1. And this is now the whole mean plan by Stockfish. Somehow, maybe not on the first rank, but what we are trying to do is now to create this kind of a battery on the h-file, and then to open the h-file, get somehow the rook into the game. That's now the most brutal plan here of white. What should, for instance, black do? If you play queen to a4, then as I said, queen to h1 is simply, I think, immediately winning the game. We will eventually open the position. Knight is controlling the square g6, so in my opinion, not a good continuation, of course, for black. So that's why from knight to e5, we have h takes g5. Stockfish grabs now this pawn on c6, hits also the queen, and again, you have two choices. Queen to c7 or queen to f6. If you play here queen to c7, as we said, you're just improving the position of the knight again. Knight to e5, we're covering our king, and knight again is centralized. It's simply, again, the best minor piece on the board. You're trying maybe rook to d8, playing something like, I don't know, queen to e5, but now f4, we support our knight further. If you take, then we have even this one. You can, of course, never pick up the pawn on g4 because you're getting tactically destroyed here around the square h7. You could try maybe a4, but now with knight to g6, look at this. So you can play, I don't know, king to f7, then something like this happens, we trade, knight comes back into the game again, a devastating position. After knight to g6, you can maybe try rook to e8, but now queen to b5, we can even allow ourselves to pick up some pawns because you can never really pick up here the pawn on d4 because then the rook is hanging on e8. For instance, this is also one tactic. Also, if you play something like, I don't know, queen to a6 can be played here. So many tactical opportunities here for white. So as I said, from knight to c6, that's why queen to f6 by Rebel, trying to get a new defender into the game, but now f4. Stockfish simply puts more pressure against his position. Look how Stockfish is attacking with the king on g3. This is sick, brutal chess. Really wild stuff. So g takes f4, e takes f4. We have bishop to b7, knight to e5, again centralizing the knight, and now queen to d8. Here Rebel understood, of course, the mean plan of Stockfish. The Stockfish, as I said, is trying somehow to play queen to d2 and then queen to h2, building a new battery, because this battery always worked. Now there is another more dangerous battery on the h-file, so that's why here after move queen to d2, Rebel tried queen to d5. Stockfish get now the queen on h2, and here Rebel gave up material just in order to prevent some checkmate threats on the h-file. From this point on, of course, it's a one-way ticket in white's favor. Of course, black has this two connected passers, tried of course here to push the pawns, but now after g takes f5, e takes f5, Stockfish created himself also now two connected passers here on the c and d file, but two minor pieces against this against one rook in this type of position is of course much better, because g6 was played. Now the rook gets back, we have g5, Stockfish continues with the normal d6, we have king to g7, c6. White is much faster here in the attack. We have now the move a3, bishop to b3, we have g takes f4, and now rook to e1. Stockfish protects now the powerful knight on e5. We have bishop rook to a8, c7, we have a2, and now rook to a1. Stockfish controls, of course, the weak a2 pawn. Rook from a to e8, Stockfish grabs now the pawn, sacrifices now the knight on e5, but of course two connected passers on the 6th or 7th rank are basically unstoppable for a lonely rook. Here in the continuation, we have rook from e to e8 trying to sacrifice the rook, but Stockfish now of course took. We have rook to e8, bishop to e6 controls, of course, the c8 square. Here we have king to f6, Stockfish promotes, and now after a couple more moves here it was game over. Stockfish simply grabbed too much material, and in this particular position here the Rebel engine resigned. Pooh. what to say, really epic game, really positional brilliancy, and I think this is really one of the most beautiful games that I've seen by Stockfish, because we have seen now many dirty tactical games in which Stockfish played, I don't know, immortal 12 move, 13 move, 15, 20 moves, forced tactical sequences. But I think this game is really a beautiful position game, which is understandable. I would not say really beginners, but I think normal players, really good players, can understand this concept and they can apply it, because I think you have reached sometimes a similar position in the Slav defense, semi-Slav structures or something, and you'd never played the game like this because you never understood maybe the concept of the backward pawn on c6, the weak square on c5, and similar stuff. So in my opinion, really a beautiful instructive game here played by Fish, and in my opinion, as I said, so far one of the best positional games that I've seen in my life. So I hope that you enjoyed this game. If you want to see more brutal and spectacular chess games like this, check out our Common Chess Games Played by Computer series. Here's the link of our playlist, and if you will like this content, you can of course subscribe to my channel. See you soon with some more videos, and what do we say? Chess is the best, of course.